You're listening to the Skylight Books podcast. We're an independent, general interest bookstore putting great reads in the hands of people in the Los Feliz neighborhood of Los Angeles. Hosted by resident Skylighters, we're here to bring you new and exciting author conversations, group reads, and bookseller chats. Happy listening. Hello, lovely listeners, and welcome back to the Skylight Books podcast. I'm your host, Natalie, and today we are so excited to welcome Lucy Yu, owner of You and Me Books, for a very special HANDSELL episode. You and Me Books is located in Chinatown, Manhattan, New York, and is a bookstore that showcases immigrant stories and creates a home for the community. Thank you so much for being here, Lucy.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Well, do you want to start by giving us a little bit of background on yourself and the store, just to kind of kick us off?
Absolutely. Well, my name is Lucy Yu. I am the owner of You and Me Books. It is the first female Asian American owned bookstore / bar / cafe in New York City. So I'm super excited to be the first there. I was a former chemical engineer and former supply chain manager turned bookstore owner. So I'm just really excited to be following my dreams and opening up the store.
Amazing. That is, oh my gosh, I can't wait to get into that.
Oh my gosh.
Before we get into the here and now of the store, I wanted you to take me all the way back. I wanted to know, what is your first memory of books? Either realizing what a book was, holding a book, reading a book. What is one of your first memories of books?
I remember reading the dictionary. I had this dream that I would know every single word in the English language. I'd be I'd be so literate by the time I was 5. Clearly didn't make it past the first page of A's. But I remember my mom had this really small black book that was the dictionary, and she used it a lot because English was her second language. And so she was always referring back to it. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to make a stance here. I'm going to know every single word. But yeah, I mean, my mom and I read all the time. She was constantly she had this dream of reading every single Pulitzer Prize winner book out there. And I had the dream of reading every Harry Potter book out there. So clearly we both have the same level of goals.
Yeah.
But I mean, we were both really avid readers. My grandma was an avid reader too. So I probably passed the dictionary. My first book that I remember is The Magic Treehouse. Is that right? Was that one of them, the series? And it was I'm definitely mixing up two different things.
It's Magic School Bus, and then is it also Magic Treehouse though? It is. As booksellers, we're like, shit, sorry.
I know, same. This is such a bad, I'm like, But you know that series with the tree?
No, it is. Yeah. Magic Treehouse. It is called Magic Treehouse.
Magic Treehouse. Yay. Okay, great. Magic Treehouse was that was my jam. And then, I obviously clearly have this idea of organizing some sort of book. So when I was in elementary school, I wanted to read all of the books in the library. So clearly a total nerd here.
And then so reading started obviously early on. Were you a consistent reader throughout your life? Were there any points in time where you either fell out with books, or you guys took a little break or anything like that? Or have you consistently just read from the moment you could and fell in love with books and we're tied together, we're linked now?
It's been a roller coaster of, I'm this long-term relationship with books. But when I was a kid, I mean, I read all the time. I read every single day. My mom's I've never seen you go anywhere without a book, even since I was a kid. When I was in college and things just got so busy with studying engineering, and I still read, I think, probably a couple books a year, but it was very few and far between. And I think that was the only time that I didn't indulge in books as I normally would. I remember the second I graduated and I worked at my first full-time job, the first thing I did was oh my gosh, I have so much opportunity to read and so much time to like read all the books that I had on my list.
Yeah. And so was it early on that you knew, like, was it always just a dream in the back of your head that you wanted to either work at a library because you liked organizing the books, or own a bookstore, work at a bookstore? When did that idea sort of become, when did the seed, when was the seed planted? And then when did it become something that you thought could maybe potentially happen, or you wanted to work to make happen?
I think I've always secretly wanted to become a literary major, work in the book industry in some way, shape, or form, whether that be selling books or opening up my own store. But when I was younger, it was more an idea of like, oh, I'll open this when I retire. And of course, the path that I think made my mom really happy was engineering. Like, I think you ask any Asian mother, they're like, okay, how about like selling books or engineering? And they're like, I don't know why you're even
Engineering.
Yeah, they're like, why is this even brought up right now? But especially in the pandemic, I think when everyone's going through so much grief and going through so much loss together, we come to the things that comfort us the most, whether that be nostalgic or just like warmth and connection. And I think that was always books for me. So I found a lot of space and care for myself in books, especially in the pandemic, experiencing grief myself as well. And I thought that, like, well, you know what? Life is really short. Why not just work on opening up this bookstore now? So I kind of put together some bookshop plan on Google spreadsheets when I was drunk off 3 glasses of wine. And I was like,
You're like, I can do this.
I was like, I was Googling, like, how do I open up a bookstore? Clearly not well, as everyone was unwell. But
Yeah.
I started like slowly chipping away at it, and super excited that now it's really unbelievable that now I get to go into a store that I own.
Yeah. And I mean, we could obviously talk about your spreadsheet and the logistics and and things like
And
that,
all the boring stuff.
And all the boring stuff, which I'm sure there are people out there who like would love to know because they want to also open a bookstore and have that dream. But I really was interested in what other kinds of like things you came across in this process of turning this into a reality, like the more internal, like what that process was like in terms of things you knew you wanted for this store, especially to showcase immigrant stories and to like have a home for people that you wanted to represent, specifically in the Asian American community. And like if there were things you knew you were going to have to fight for. I'm sure it wasn't, I mean, it obviously wasn't easy to open a bookstore. but specifically like things that were really important to you in doing this process, and the reasons that you did it, and the things you wanted to achieve and what you wanted it to be for the community you were going to be serving. I'd love to hear like a little bit about that internal process for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, first off, there's a lot of self-doubt in this process. I think when you're starting your own business and you have no one else to rely on, other than your brain and your perseverance. And I guess you can rely on the resources of the community that supports you, which is like amazing. And I feel so grateful and thankful that I have that. It's really scary. And I struggle with anxiety. I struggle with depression. So I think with all those aspects of what was going on in my head and also pushing forward and continuing to pursue my dream and passion was a balance that I always had to figure out how to manage. And I always will have to figure out how to manage. I think one thing that was really important to me to keep with the integrity of the bookstore was I didn't want it to just be Asian American stories. I really wanted to showcase even the large range of immigrant stories that are out there and how much we can find connection with each other, especially as immigrants, especially as children of immigrants, because I think there's so much overlap there. And sometimes our communities can be really siloed. And I think that there's so much beauty in connection and community that can happen there.
And I'm sure that you did, but were there any like major roadblocks that you hit along the way, that you really had to kind of either find your way around or move through? I mean, obviously, whatever they were, you moved through them because you're here.
Yeah.
And you have your store, but I'd love to hear like just about some of the things that you either had to fight for, some compromises you maybe had to make with whoever, either yourself or other people in the process too.
Yeah, I think roadblocks are going to continue to happen. And that's always going to be, it's always a little bit of, yeah. No, I mean, I think it's always going to be like a compromise of things that will come up and like things that I'm not going to do perfectly. I'm never going to do anything perfectly. And that's like completely okay. And I think that that's like really exciting because I think there's a lot of room to learn and grow for myself and for what I want the space to be. One of the things is like, there's just so many things that Google doesn't tell you, like getting a lawyer to negotiate the lease. And I think the lease negotiation process, I know this is like the nitty gritty boring stuff, but
inside baseball.
Oh my gosh, it was so hard. Like it took so long. There was so much back and forth. It took months of negotiating. And I'm the kind of person that like when I negotiated my salary, I watched like 12 YouTube videos just hyping myself up to do it. And I still was like, I don't think I'm doing this right. But so I think conflict and standing up for myself are things that I really learned to embrace and just learn to kind of know how to do. And that was something that's like really just doesn't come super naturally to me, but that's something I had to push through to just get the things in the store open. Like I have to negotiate with vendors all the time. I have to make sure to stand firm on the budgets that I have. And that stuff is like, you can Google all the resources of like how to open up a bookstore, but those smaller logistical things that take months and so much money and resources are things that I just didn't realize.
Yeah. And then so were you ever a bookseller before you opened a store?
I was not.
You were not? That's so interesting.
Yeah. No experience in publishing, no experience in bookselling.
Just like from coming at it from a business perspective and a love of books.
Yeah. I mean, my love of books has always been there. I've always wanted to be a bookseller. Honestly,
Yeah.
I like applied for a couple book selling jobs in addition to like my full-time job during the pandemic. But I think that what I noticed with the books that I was aching for and hungry for was that they were never easily found at a lot of the bookstores I went to. So that was something that I really wanted to focus on and make sure that we showcase those stories and voices at the forefront of the business that I had in mind.
So what do you think of book selling now that you're a bookseller?
Oh my gosh.
What is the reality versus expectations like meme that
also just
that you see now?
First off, shout out to all the freaking booksellers out there. Like y'all do the most. And it is like, it's cash register, like, book recommendations, customer service, and it's honestly 4 jobs in one, like restocking inventory management. So there's so much in book selling. And I think that booksellers are what drive the stories that are being shared at the bookstores that we go to. If you're just looking at a bookstore itself, like it's essentially a bookcase, and a bookcase does not come alive without a bookseller. So I think that just major kudos to all the booksellers, because like even when you're tired and even when you're like, I just want to be a introvert and hide behind the counter and read this book, like people are always going to ask you for what you recommend and if there's something out there that's exciting, and that is the best part of the job, but you also have to be on all the time. So I just have tremendous respect for all booksellers. It is not an easy job.
Yeah, from one depressed, anxious introvert to another.
Yes.
It is definitely being on all the time is definitely a struggle. But when you get to like hand sell a book to someone and it's a book you've been like dying to hand sell to someone,
Yeah.
it is absolutely so rewarding. Do you remember the first time you got to like do that since opening the store? Even like the
Oh
first
my
person who
gosh.
came into the store? Like what was that like for you?
It brings me to tears. So this is actually like a regular that I have at the store every single week. She's a neighbor. She lives upstairs. Her name is Stephanie. Hi, Stephanie, if you're listening to this. But she came in, she like snuck in underneath the door and asked if I was open because she's like, is this a bookstore? And I was like, sure is, girlfriend. And she came in like right as I set up my POS system, right as I set up the cash register and everything. And I was like, like feel free to take a look around. My partner was there, and I think my mom was there too. And you're welcome to just like peruse the shelves. And she was like, do you have anything that you would recommend that just has beautiful prose? And I was like, oh, I've been waiting for this question my whole life.
Yeah.
And obviously like the first book I recommended was A Little Life, but I think that book comes with like a lot of caveats because it's a lot. It's a lot as a book. And if you're not prepared for it mentally, like I don't want to recommend that to you. And the second one was A Place for Us by Fatima Mirza. And that is a book that I love and I think is super underrated. And I recommended that to her and she's like, okay, I'll get it. And she comes back 2 weeks later after I opened. She's like, I love the book and it was amazing. And it shows this like struggle of this immigrant family staying here in the States. And it feels so rewarding to be able to share that story with someone else. And they're like, I really liked it.
Yeah. And have you had more like, are you finding regulars, like you have people you've set up sort of relationships and you're seeing that community form in the store?
Yeah, I think that is really exciting for me. And that's something I love because it's like a family, to have someone, come in and they just hang out and they chat about you throughout the day. I'm like, okay, like tell me about the dates you went on last weekend or, just like what's been going on in your life. And I think just seeing these people like every other day has really, really brought so much joy and light to my life.
Well, and because you have like you mentioned, a bar and a cafe in the store as well. Was that always something that you wanted to include, to have like to make it a place where people came and stayed? Like it wasn't just a shopping thing. It was a place for people to be and to interact with each other and have more space to do that.
Yeah, that was always part of the plan. I think there is a transient transaction doesn't foster the amazing conversations and community that can be built from just sitting down and having a drink with someone. I always say this, I'm like, you can't speak and sip at the same time. So sipping anything causes you to just take a step back and listen. And I think that for any person having a conversation with someone else, having that just time where you can pause and be really present is really important in creating that kind of relationship and just sharing of stories.
And now we're really gonna get into it. We're gonna talk about books.
Let's do it.
What are you reading right now? Tell me
Okay.
everything.
Oh my gosh. I'm reading this book called Disorientation. And it comes out on Tuesday.
I saw on Twitter you posted a picture with Elaine.
Yes, Elaine is incredible. Also, I didn't realize. So first of all, the cover, I know don't judge a book by its cover, but the cover is.
But it's a beautiful cover.
Phenomenal. It's beautiful. And I didn't realize, but she had told me that the cover artist, that's actually, she built that. The cover artist built that. It's not Photoshopped.
Oh my gosh.
So she's like showing me photos of these like tiny vases being broken. And I'm obsessed with it. So I've been almost done with that before the book launch tomorrow. Cause then I want to just like recommend it to everyone that comes in on pub day. I just finished reading, Seeing Ghosts by Kat Chow, which is a wonderful memoir. And then earlier this year,
that book.
So good. It's so
It's
disjoint.
so
Like
good.
it's not linear. And I think that that's a really good representation of grief, because grief is
Mm-hmm.
very nonlinear. Um, and then earlier
I
this year,
did this.
oh, sorry, go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say I did this really like questionable thing for my mental health where I read that and Crying in H Mart at the same time.
Oh my gosh, are you
Um,
okay?
no, I'm not, Lucy.
I'm not well reading those two books separately. So like together I'd be like a
No,
puzzle.
I know it was like, and I knew that they were both like about grief in like in their own way, but it was something that I like didn't realize because I had a galley of seeing ghosts, and then I was listening to the audiobook of Crying in H Mart, and they were both like so different and so beautiful, and it was almost I almost liked doing that. Like I told
Mhm.
people that, and that I was doing both at the same time, and it was very like beautiful and
Mhm.
interesting to read both of those two different experiences of grief, both from Asian American women, but uh, one Korean, and Kat is Chinese.
Yeah, I think she's ethnically
Yeah,
Chinese. Yeah.
yeah. But the like the rituals and like things that they both went through in their process of grief was just so beautiful to see like laid out next to each other. um and so yes, it was awful for my, my mental health, and like sitting in so much grief like at one time. But like you were saying, like those especially non-linear stories of grief are so important, um especially in a time where the world is kind of having a hard time acknowledging that we are grieving. Um,
Yeah.
so those books are definitely hard to make your way through, but they're very important. And I loved
I
that one
think
very
that was
much.
such a beautiful way to say it, because we live, and I worked for a corporation, and there's not a great space for grief when you're like
Hmm.
working and you're in this, economy in which like work is the most important thing. And so I've been in this grief cycle of reading. Like I read What My Bones Know. I read also Welcome to the Grief Club, which is like a wonderful book about grief by Janine Kuo, who started her own greeting card company, Quotations First, and then developed this book. But I think
Hmm.
that in each of the books that I read, it was a very different way of handling grief, but it also made me kind of come to terms with going through grief myself, and just like feeling less alone through that process, because we're in a very unique time when everyone's grieving so much for the last
Hmm.
couple of years all the time, in which I think that there's at the beginning I was like, there's a grief pool, and this pool is like depleted of water and it's dry, and there's like nowhere for us to turn. So
Yeah.
I'm with you. I'm sure it was really a lot and like just devastado like while you were reading it, but
Yeah. But I still recommend them to people like all the time. Both of
yeah.
them. They don't need any recommendation because people are grabbing them anyway. But um, people come in, like, I find that, I don't know if you've found this, but some people come in asking for like books about grief, or just, and I've seen a lot more of them on the shelf. People are writing more about it, which is good.
I'm really, really happy to see that. Like, I think that grief can be both a universal and very personal thing to go through. So having a plethora of resources from all these different perspectives, I think is something that's incredibly important and needed in the space.
Yeah, for sure. And then before we got on that tangent, you
Just a little
were still
tangent.
telling me about little tangent about grief and life and all those things, but you were telling
Yeah.
me more of what you were reading. What else?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I've also been into like light reads. So I read Death by Dumpling by Vivian Chan. And it's like
Uh-huh.
a cozy mystery series.
Uh-huh.
And it took me a day to read, and I like ate it up. Like, I think that I need to balance these really incredibly emotional books with something that's like a quick read, like a fall love story I really loved. Just all of these wonder, like 7 Days in June, I really loved all of these amazing stories that just are quick and bring a lot of joy in life.
Do you read any kids books? Or do you like, I mean, you will look through them obviously, but do you have an affinity for any like YA or picture books or anything?
I wish I obviously like look through kids books, but I've
Yeah.
noticed that as I'm like sifting through these kids books, that this is like a space in which so much wonderful representation is happening. I think like the space that is breaking, having the most representation and diversity is the children's book space.
Mm-hmm.
I don't regularly read picture books. I think I'm like, I'm have a little fear of children. I think they can smell fear on me because they know I'm scared of them. So sometimes reading children's books reminds me of that fear. But I like, as I'm reading through them, I'm like, oh my God, these kids today have just so many more resources than I ever had growing up.
Well, so many more resources, but also it's like interesting to see what their issues are, or the issues that they're facing, at least like in these books. I'm reading a middle grade novel right now, Air by Monica Rowe, which I'm really loving, but I'm like, they're dealing with all these problems with cell phones, and I'm like, I didn't have one. This is not they're like you have these passages in books now where they're just text conversations
In kids books?
in like middle grade books or YA
Wow.
novels. Yeah, like it'll be like a text conversation, and it's played out that way, it's written out that way, which is so funny.
Wow.
But I love talking to, like, and it's funny because adults who probably didn't have cell phones at that age are writing them.
Oh,
Is the other
100%.
thing.
That's
So
so
it's
interesting.
it's so interesting to see like how like kids books have evolved, and I definitely agree that there's so much beautiful representation happening there. But there's also no way, there's so many, you think about the volume of like even good like literary fiction or genre fiction or anything that's coming out. I feel like for every novel that comes out, there's 10 kids books.
It's so hard for me to keep up. And I think I always get scared when someone's like, what age do you think this is good for? And I was like, I really do avoid eye contact with most children. I'm so sorry. I think the back says 6 to 12. Like, I cannot confirm.
I know I have to, well, even with YA too, like I have a lot of people ask, like, is this appropriate for this age? And I'm like, if you look at the back, technically, yes. But also I feel like it can get, it's kind of hard to recommend kids books now because people are so particular about the way that either they're raising their kids or the things that they want to expose them to.
Yeah.
We did an event with Mariko Tamaki earlier this week, and she said something that I loved so much, because we were talking about YA and someone was like, what does YA even mean? Like, who gets to decide what's appropriate for children? Like, if they're writing for children. And she said, if kids have experienced it, then it's appropriate for them. And I thought that was really, I thought it was such an interesting, like, and a thing that gave kids a lot of agency. Because a lot of my favorite thing is to see kids sitting on the floor in the kids section without their parents, just like picking up a book, because that's something that they like, it gives them the opportunity to choose those stories for themselves. And so I love that your store has like there's space to sit and space to like exist for people to pick up books, because a lot of times, like you said, that transactional nature of just like a store that offers goods can, like, the exploration of stories can get lost in that.
I completely agree with that. And I think that was something that was really important to me. Like, we have this reading room in the back where I'll notice a lot of parents sitting in the comfy chairs with their kids. And one day, like, this parent kid combo was reading Not Quite Narwhal, which is a book that represents a lot of the non-binary experience. And I was so excited to see that. Like, I think it was really emotional to watch, to see this connection of parent to kid and sharing a story in which representation was so important. And yeah, I also think YA is a construct. Like, I think that I've noticed a lot of female written books are more labeled YA than not. And like, for example, the book Yolk was labeled as YA. And I was like, this is not a YA novel. Like,
don't even get me started on Mary H.K. Choi. I love her much.
She's
Emergency
amazing.
Contact is I mean, all of her books are incredible, but Emergency Contact, I think, is my favorite meet cute of all time.
Oh my gosh. And she's so funny too. Like, she's so darkly funny. Yeah. And like, I mean, I read her books and I related so much to it. And why does that get labeled as like YA versus like literary fiction?
Yeah, because at that age too, it's like those. So yeah, YA, for Yoke, they were just out of college they weren't in college anymore.
Yeah, I think it was
they were in college. Okay, so yeah, like in college, and Emergency Contact was also like starting college. That I feel like, again, it's like, where is that line? Because I have like a niece who is 13 and she's watching Grey's Anatomy, but I didn't feel like, because she's 13, I wasn't sure if she should read this book about people in college, but she's watching TV about adults.
Right.
And I feel like part of that is probably like you said, like, who's deciding where these books get shelved, because then like people trust that they're being shelved in the proper place and they're going to follow that. So yeah, there's definitely like, I think those are questions that people have always been asking, but are still continuing to ask, especially as a lot of these beautiful, beautiful labeled YA books, especially by women of color, are being written, and people are reading who are not kids. Like, everybody is reading them, adults especially, me very much included. YA by women of color is one of my favorite genres.
Oh, so good. And there's like so much amazing stuff in there. And I think that sometimes when it's labeled as YA, like, adults are like, oh, I don't know about this. And I was like, no, like, you'll feel so seen by this book.
You will feel incredible.
Exactly.
It will do so much for you. And I hope that there's so much, like, more of that, more curiosity, like, in book selling as like time goes on. And I'd love to hear what some of your like hopes for the future of the store, a few things. So of the store, of book selling in general, and like for booksellers, something that all of these things that you're fairly new to and you've now been fully immersed in. What are your hopes for the future of your store? Like, what are some things you'd love to see happen? And what are some of your hopes for the future of book selling and booksellers?
I mean, I'm such a newbie to the book selling biz, and I'm like, hey, like, I'm like 3 months in, hello. But I think that something that's always bothered me is like AAPI month. There's like one display shelf of 6 books written by Asian authors, and they're like, look, here's like our recommendations. And then, the rest of the time, like, where do these books go? Why are they not presented on the shelves? And I think when I first started, something that was commonly asked was like, do you have a section for like Asian authors, or do you have a section for like Vietnamese experiences and specificities? And I'm like, there's no sections. It's all fiction and nonfiction. And I think that that's something that is important about filling up the shelves that we have with more diversity and more diverse experiences, instead of just having a highlight for 1 month and not really focusing on it for the rest of the year. So I think in terms of book selling, I I'm trying to do this a little bit more too. Obviously, like me as a bookseller, I have my biases and my blind spots of, I love the books that I love, and it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. So I've been expanding my own reading, like fantasy and sci-fi is definitely not my genre, but I'm really trying to read more in that space because I think there's a lot of amazing stuff in that space, so that when I can recommend a book to someone, I'm really making sure I'm diversifying the stack of books that they have as well. So I think it starts with like, how do I diversify my own reading, and how can I transfer that to someone else that's coming in looking for something new? And for the future of the space, I wish I could like expand the space and make the walls a little bit bigger so I can add more books. But in the meantime, I'm really working on more community events and how can I support a community of people that have really felt lonely during this time, and how can they feel more seen? So working on some virtual events there, working on some mental health resources that they can find within the bookstore, and books that come with that, or either fiction or nonfiction, in which you can feel a little bit less alone and a little bit more of a community feeling, even when you're reading alone.
And then one final question that is a build off of that. How can our listeners and all of the booksellers at Skylight continue to support you and me?
Well, this was so supportive to me, just talking to you. This was so fun. Of course, like, you know, if anyone's ever in Chinatown, Manhattan, please stop by the store and say hi. If there's any books that you like to see on the shelves, I'm of course happy to order them for you. We have a website with books that we choose out monthly as well. But I think just like sharing your own story with the people there, coming there and sharing your story with me is all very healing and supportive for me.
Well, we are so happy to hear it. This was an episode of our HANDSELL podcast that I immediately wanted to do as soon as we saw like whatever. I don't know if it was when you opened or like there was like that week or something, there was an article and it kind of just like exploded on Twitter. That was like You and Me opens in Chinatown, and everybody was just like so excited. I remember like I retweeted it, and then everyone was asking like how they could support, if you had a website, like where they could buy books and all these things. And it just really filled me up with so much joy. And I am so excited that You and Me exists and that you get to serve your community and create a space for people to sit and listen and then speak.
Oh, thank you. It's honestly like, thank you so much for just saying all that. It means so much to me.
Yeah, people who love books have a kindred spirit connection. There's a like something so pure about that love of stories, and booksellers, no matter how long they've been bookselling, like bookselling is bookselling, and you get to see how it works. And I hope that you have been enjoying it. I'm sure that you have, and that you like, I'd love to continue to hear more about like more things you learn about it. Because that's the other thing too, is like we booksellers like talk to each other, which is why we love doing this part of our podcast.
It's literally my favorite job I've ever had in my life. And I've had more than engineering. Jobs. Oh my gosh.
I don't want to shit on the engineering community.
Oh my God. Sorry to my former engineering community. I honestly, like, engineering was never for me. I did it, you know, and like, but book selling, like, oh my God, what a freaking awesome job. Like, you just get to read books. You get to talk to people about it. You get to just like, one day, I hired one of my really close friends, Jason, who now works at the store, and we've been having Survivor nights on Wednesdays. So last Wednesday, we watched the episode of Survivor live. He made some dumplings, and I was just in his living room, lying on the ground with him, stomach full of dumplings. And we just talked about all these books and analyzed them for like 3 hours. And I was like, this is like my childhood dream. This is it. This is it right here.
This is what I've been working for. And you thought you were going to have to wait until you retired to do it.
I know, thank God. I was like 40 years early, but I'm really I'm really happy about that. I'm honestly, like, life is so short, and I'm just like, I get to eventually think about whenever I retire and be like, I did the thing that I've always wanted to do at like 27. So I'm really excited about that.
That's so amazing. And we at Skylight are so happy that it is a space that people can visit when they're in New York. And next time I am in New York, you will definitely see me there. If you are ever in LA, we hope to see you at Skylight. And for all of our listeners, please, please, please go visit You and Me Books in Chinatown, Manhattan, New York. If you are not in New York, you can always shop online and visit them on their website. And I hope to talk to you again very soon, Lucy.
I hope to talk to you again soon. I will be, honestly, seriously, email me anytime if you have any good books.
Absolutely.
We'll chat.
Oh yes,
we'll chat.
we will have bookseller chat. We will continue this conversation, not to bore all our listeners with our inside baseball talk.
I love it.
I will ask one, I keep saying one more question, but I will ask one more because we as booksellers get all the perks. So do you want to tell our listeners some books that you're looking forward to this year? That that you've read and like you're ready for or excited about?
There's so many. It's hard to choose just one. Well, I'm really excited for John Cho's book coming out, Troublemaker. I'm just like, he's actually coming to the shop on Tuesday. And first of all, I'm like so freaking excited because I'm a huge fan and I have to act like I'm a normal person, which will be really, really so nerve-wracking and fun. So I'm really excited for his book. I am super excited for, there's so many good books out. Four Treasures of the Sky, by Jenny Zhang. And now that I'm on the spot, I'm like, I had a list of books I was working on this morning. I can't think of any of them, but there's just so many good books out this year. And
I know. Yeah.
There's endless like excitement on my end just to see all the books coming out. Like I literally sip wine every day and I'm like, what else is coming out? So hope that answers your question with like top of my mind.
It absolutely does. Yes, there's things for everyone to look forward to, and we can't wait to watch You and Me continue to grow and become a big, overwhelming space. I hope you get to expand your walls sometime soon in the future.
Well, the skylight is the limit. I'm so sorry. That was such a
oh my God.
time.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that.
Well, thank you for having me. I hope I end on a terrible pun because that's how I always like to Irish exit. So
no, that was the most beautiful Irish exit. And thank you so much to all of our listeners. Again, my guest today was Lucy Yu, owner of You and Me Books. And we hope that you visit both of us in New York and LA, wherever you are at, either in person or virtually. And thanks for listening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Skylight Books podcast series. Please don't forget to visit our website at skylightbooks.com and make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast for more author talks and bookseller conversations. You can find us on Podbean, iTunes, and Spotify. Stay safe and healthy, and we hope to see you back in our store soon.